You're following financial advice that was never meant for you. The budgeting tips you saved from that viral post, written by someone making 3 times your income. The investment strategy from that podcast, designed for people with money you don't have yet. The just save 20% rule everyone repeats, mathematically impossible for millions of people who hear it. Here's what almost nobody tells you about personal finance. The strategies that work at one income level don't just become unnecessary at another level, they become counterproductive. The habits that build wealth at $35,000 can actually slow you down at $75,000. The approaches that serve you at $75,000 can become liabilities at $100,000 and above. You've probably felt this intuitively. The advice that seems so relevant when you started your career feels increasingly disconnected from your current situation. But nobody explains why it changes, or when, or what you should do instead at each stage. This video breaks down the specific money strategies that matter at 3 critical income levels: $35,000, $75,000, and $100,000 and above. Not generic advice that applies to everyone. Specific strategies calibrated to the constraints and opportunities of each bracket. If you've ever wondered whether you're focusing on the right financial priorities for your actual situation, not someone else's situation with a different income and different constraints, this is for you. Your income level changes everything about what matters most. It's time to stop following advice designed for someone else's paycheck. Let's start with the reality at $35,000. At this income level, your take-home pay after taxes is roughly $2,500 per month. That's it. That's what you have to cover rent, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, and everything else life requires. I'm not going to pretend this is easy. It's not. Every single dollar matters at this level in a way that people earning more genuinely don't understand. A $200 car repair isn't an inconvenience. It's a financial emergency that can cascade into missed rent, late fees, and debt that compounds for months. The strategies at this income level aren't about optimizing. They're about survival and creating the foundation for everything that comes later. The first priority is building breathing room through a starter emergency fund. Not 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's a goal for later. Right now, you need 1 to 2 months of essential expenses saved in an accessible account. If your bare necessities cost $2,000 monthly, you're targeting $2,000 to $4,000 saved. This fund is a shock absorber. It's what prevents a single unexpected expense from derailing your entire financial life and pushing you into high-interest debt that takes years to escape. Here's how to build it when money is tight. Save 5 to 10% of your take-home pay automatically. At $2,500 monthly, that's $125 to $250. Set up an automatic transfer to a separate savings account the day after payday, before you have a chance to spend it. But I can't afford to save anything. I hear this constantly, and I understand why it feels true. But something interesting happens when money automatically disappears before you see it. You adapt. Your spending naturally adjusts to what remains. The money that would have been absorbed by small purchases instead accumulates in your emergency fund. Review your last 2 months of spending. Find subscriptions you've forgotten about. Negotiate bills. Call your internet provider, your phone company, your insurance. These calls feel awkward, but routinely save $10 to $50 monthly. Cancel services you're not actively using. These small reductions add up to the emergency fund contribution you thought was impossible. In 2026, high-yield savings accounts pay 4 to 5% APY. Your emergency fund should sit in one of these, earning meaningful returns while remaining accessible. The second priority at $35,000 is attacking high-interest debt aggressively. Consumer debt at this income level is devastating. Credit card interest rates average over 22% in 2026. A $5,000 balance costs you over $1,100 annually in interest alone. That's money that could be building your future, instead disappearing into payments for purchases you've already forgotten. Here's the approach. List every debt with its interest rate and balance. Choose either the avalanche method, paying highest interest first, or the snowball method, paying smallest balance first. The avalanche saves more money mathematically. The snowball provides psychological wins that keep you motivated. Pick whichever you'll actually stick with. Once your emergency fund covers 1 to 2 months of expenses, redirect that automatic savings toward debt payoff. Attack the debt aggressively until it's gone. Then, rebuild and expand your emergency fund with the payments you were making toward debt. The third priority at this level is the most transformative: increasing your income. I know this sounds obvious or even frustrating. If you could just earn more, you would. But here's the truth. At $35,000, you can only cut expenses so much. Rent takes what it takes. Food costs what it costs. Transportation requires what it requires. The margins are thin because the income is limited. You can optimize a $35,000 salary forever and still never build real wealth. The math simply doesn't support it. The biggest lever you can pull is increasing what comes in. This doesn't mean you need a completely new career immediately. Start by optimizing your current job. Ask about overtime. Request additional responsibilities that lead to raises. Have explicit conversations about advancement paths. Many people at this income level have never directly asked their manager what it would take to move up, and they'd be surprised at the answers. Simultaneously, invest in marketable skills. Not expensive degree programs, free or low-cost skill development that increases your value in the job market. YouTube tutorials, Khan Academy, free certifications, online courses. Identify skills in demand in your area or industry and start building them during nights and weekends. Consider side income that leverages what you already know. If you're good at something, anything, there's probably someone willing to pay you for that knowledge. Tutoring, freelance work, consulting on a small scale. Even an extra $500 monthly is $6,000 annually, a meaningful percentage increase on a $35,000 base. The goal isn't to stay at $35,000 while optimizing it perfectly. The goal is to build the foundation, emergency fund, no consumer debt, while working toward the income increase that makes real wealth building possible. Now let's move to $75,000. This is a fascinating transition point. You have breathing room now. Bills are covered. You're probably not living in constant financial anxiety, but you're not wealthy either. You're in the middle, with enough income to make real progress if you handle it correctly, or enough rope to hang yourself financially if you don't. The median household income in America is roughly this range. If you're here, you're doing better than half the country. But you're also at the point where the decisions you make have massive long-term implications. The first strategy at $75,000 is capturing free money through employer benefits. If your employer offers a 401k with matching contributions, and you're not at least contributing enough to get the full match, you're literally declining free money. This is not an exaggeration. It's the closest thing to free money that exists in personal finance. Here's how it works. If your employer matches 100% of contributions up to 5% of your salary, contributing 5% means your employer adds another 5%. You're instantly doubling your money before any investment returns. That's a guaranteed 100% return, something no investment can promise. At $75,000, 5% is $3,750 annually. With your employer match, that becomes $7,500. Invested over a career, that single habit builds substantial wealth through compound growth. Set this contribution to happen automatically from your paycheck. The money never hits your checking account, so you never miss it. Your spending adapts to the lower take-home pay without conscious effort. Beyond the 401k match, open a Roth IRA and contribute whatever you can, up to the annual limit of $7,000 in 2026. Roth IRA contributions grow completely tax-free. Money you invest now won't be taxed when you withdraw it in retirement, potentially saving you tens of thousands in taxes over your lifetime. The combination of maxing your employer match and contributing to a Roth IRA creates an automatic wealth-building engine that runs without requiring willpower or attention. The second strategy at this level is implementing full financial automation. At $35,000, you might need to watch every dollar closely because the margins are so thin. At $75,000, you have enough cushion to build systems that handle your money automatically, and doing so dramatically accelerates your progress. Here's what automated finances look like. On payday, before you make any decisions, automatic transfers move money to multiple destinations. A percentage goes to your Roth IRA. A percentage goes to savings for specific goals: house down payment, travel fund, car replacement. Bills pay themselves through autopay. What remains in your checking account is genuinely available to spend. This system means you're not relying on willpower, memory, or motivation to save and invest. The money moves before you can decide to spend it elsewhere. 1 month you're busy, 1 month you're unmotivated, 1 month you forget. Doesn't matter. The system keeps running. Automation also eliminates late fees and missed payments. Your credit score improves automatically because bills are never late. Your savings grow automatically because transfers happen regardless of what else is going on in your life. The initial setup takes maybe an hour. After that, you check in monthly to make sure everything's running smoothly. That's it. Wealth builds in the background while you live your life. The third strategy at $75,000 is shifting from $3 questions to $30,000 questions. At lower income levels, small expenses matter because margins are tight. Cutting the daily coffee habit at $35,000 might be the difference between building an emergency fund or not. At $75,000, those same small optimizations become a distraction from what actually matters. $3 questions. Should I skip this latte? Can I save $5 on groceries with this coupon? Should I switch streaming services to save $3 monthly? These questions consume mental energy while making almost no difference to your financial life at this income level. The savings are trivial. The cognitive burden is real. $30,000 questions. How do I negotiate a $15,000 raise over the next 2 years? Am I paying excessive fees on my investments? Should I increase my savings rate by 1 percentage point annually? How do I position myself for advancement? Each of these questions, answered well, can be worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. They deserve your mental energy far more than optimizing grocery spending by $4 weekly. The shift here is fundamental. Stop playing small. Stop obsessing over trivial expenses while ignoring the big levers. Focus your limited attention on the decisions that actually move the needle. Track your spending to understand where money goes. That remains valuable. But once you've cut the obvious waste, redirect your energy toward income growth and investment optimization rather than squeezing ever smaller savings from an already reasonable budget. Now let's talk about $100,000 and above. If you're in this bracket, whether it's exactly $100,000 or $200,000 or more, you've reached a level where traditional financial advice often becomes counterproductive. You have significant income, you have options, and you face an entirely different set of challenges than people at lower income levels. The first strategy at this level is getting radically clear on what your money is actually for. This sounds philosophical, but it's deeply practical. A surprising number of high earners have no idea what they're trying to accomplish with their money beyond vague goals like financial security or freedom or building wealth. What does financial security mean specifically? What number makes you feel secure? What does freedom look like in concrete terms? What would you actually do with it? Without clarity on these questions, high earners often default to accumulation for its own sake, building wealth endlessly without ever using it for anything, or worse, spending mindlessly because they can afford to, without thinking about whether the spending serves their actual values. Here's what happens without a clear vision. You earn more, so you spend more. Lifestyle inflation absorbs every raise. You upgrade the house, the car, the vacations, the wardrobe, not because these things align with what you genuinely want, but because they're what people at your income level are supposed to have. 5 years later, you're earning $180,000 instead of $100,000, but you feel no wealthier. Your expenses rose with your income. Your savings rate stayed flat or declined. You have nicer stuff, but no more freedom. The alternative is defining your rich life specifically. What experiences matter to you? What would you do if money weren't a constraint? What's your actual target? The number that would let you live the life you want. When you know your target, you can work backward to determine required savings rates, investment strategies, and time horizons. Your money has a purpose beyond accumulation. Your spending decisions become intentional rather than reactive. The second strategy at this level is conducting a fee audit on your investments. Once you have meaningful amounts invested, fees start mattering in ways they didn't before. A 1% advisory fee seems small. It's not. Here's the math on 100,000 invested, earning 7% annually over 30 years. With no fee, that 100,000 grows to $761,000. With a 1% advisory fee, that same 100,000 grows to only $574,000. The 1% fee cost you $187,000. That's not a rounding error. It's a quarter of your potential returns, gone. Many people at higher income levels have accumulated an advisor, a money guy who manages their portfolio and charges percentage-based fees. Sometimes this relationship provides genuine value: behavioral coaching, complex planning, accountability. Often it provides little beyond what you could do yourself with low-cost index funds. Audit your investments. What are you paying in fees? What are you getting for those fees? If you're paying 1% for someone to put your money in the same index funds you could buy yourself, you're paying for nothing. This doesn't mean all advisors are bad. Complex situations, large portfolios, business ownership, unusual tax circumstances often benefit from professional guidance. But pay for that guidance through flat fees or hourly rates, not percentage-based fees that scale infinitely as your portfolio grows. The difference between paying a $2,000 flat annual fee and a 1% fee on $1 million portfolio is $8,000 annually, money that compounds in your favor instead of your advisor's. The third strategy at this level addresses the biggest wealth destroyer for high earners: lifestyle inflation. You've heard this term. You probably think you're immune to it. You're almost certainly not. Lifestyle inflation is insidious because it happens gradually, feels justified at each step, and never announces itself as a problem. Each individual upgrade seems reasonable. Collectively, they prevent wealth accumulation despite high income. You get a $20,000 raise. You upgrade your apartment, only $500 more monthly, and you deserve a nicer place after your hard work. You finance a better car. The payment fits your budget now. You start dining out more because you can afford it. You take nicer vacations because what's the point of working so hard if you don't enjoy life? 2 years later, your income is significantly higher, your lifestyle is significantly upgraded, and your savings rate is roughly unchanged. All that additional income went to consumption that provides diminishing returns on happiness. The research on this is clear. Beyond a certain income, roughly $75,000 to $100,000 depending on location, additional spending produces minimal additional happiness. The psychological boost from a nicer car fades within months. The larger house becomes normal, then just more space to clean and maintain. Lifestyle inflation buys hedonic adaptation, not lasting satisfaction. The fix is deliberately maintaining lifestyle discipline as income grows. Not living like a college student, that's unnecessary and unsustainable. But committing to upgrade lifestyle slower than income grows. If your income increases 20%, maybe your spending increases 5 or 10%. The rest goes to savings and investments. Over years, this creates a widening gap between income and spending, the gap where wealth actually accumulates. Every raise, decide in advance what percentage goes to lifestyle and what percentage goes to wealth building. Make it explicit. Write it down. Without this intentionality, lifestyle inflation captures everything automatically. The fourth strategy for high earners is examining whether traditional milestones make sense for your specific situation. At lower income levels, many financial decisions are constrained. You need affordable housing, basic transportation, essential coverage. At higher income levels, you have actual choices that should be made based on your specific circumstances rather than cultural defaults. Home ownership is the most significant example. American culture treats buying a house as the obvious path to building wealth. Once you can afford a down payment, you should buy, right? Not necessarily. Home ownership makes sense for some people in some circumstances. It doesn't make sense for everyone. At higher income levels, you have the financial flexibility to actually run the numbers rather than following assumptions. Consider the true costs. Mortgage interest, especially in the early years, most of your payment is interest, not principal. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, opportunity cost of the down payment. Compare that to renting and investing the difference. In many high-cost markets in 2026, the math favors renting and investing, sometimes dramatically. The down payment invested in index funds may generate better returns than home equity appreciation, while rental payments remain lower than ownership costs. This isn't universal advice to rent forever. It's advice to run the actual numbers for your specific situation, rather than assuming ownership is automatically superior. If you're staying in one location for 10 plus years and the purchase math works in your market, buying makes sense. If you value mobility, or you're in a market where ownership costs dramatically exceed rental costs, renting might be the wealth maximizing choice. At lower income levels, you don't have this choice. You live where you can afford. At higher income levels, you have options worth evaluating carefully. Across all these income levels, a few principles remain constant. Spend less than you earn. This is foundational at every level. The gap between income and spending is where wealth comes from. Protect that gap against lifestyle inflation, unnecessary expenses, and social pressure to spend at the level of your income. Automate good behavior. At $35,000, automate the emergency fund contribution. At $75,000, automate savings, investments, and bills. At $100,000 and above, maintain and expand those automations. Systems beat willpower at every income level. Increase income over time. Financial optimization has limits. Income growth has far fewer limits. At every level, invest in skills, relationships, and positioning that increase your earning capacity. The most powerful financial move at any income level is usually raising the ceiling rather than just optimizing under it. Understand what you're actually trying to accomplish. Money without purpose leads to accumulation without fulfillment or spending without intention. At every income level, get clear on what your money is for, then align your behavior with those priorities. But the specific tactics, where to focus your attention, what to optimize, which battles to fight, these genuinely change based on income. The person at $35,000 needs to build a basic emergency fund and eliminate high-interest debt. The person at $75,000 needs to capture employer matches and automate wealth building. The person at $100,000 and above needs to resist lifestyle inflation and ensure their investments aren't being eroded by excessive fees. Following advice designed for a different income level isn't just suboptimal, it can actively harm your financial progress. The $75,000 earner obsessing over $3 questions is wasting attention that should go toward $30,000 questions. The $100,000 earner still focused on building a starter emergency fund probably has bigger opportunities they're ignoring. Match your strategy to your situation. The strategies that got you to your current income level aren't necessarily the strategies that will serve you at the next level. Be willing to evolve your approach as your circumstances evolve. Everything in this video is financial literacy applied to different life stages. Most financial content treats all audiences the same, as if the same advice applies equally to the new graduate making $35,000 and the mid-career professional making $150,000. It doesn't. The constraints are different. The opportunities are different. The optimal strategies are different. Understanding how financial priorities shift across income levels is itself a form of financial literacy that most people never develop. They learn a single set of rules and apply them forever, never realizing that the game changes as income grows. I made a complete breakdown of financial literacy that covers the entire framework, not just income-specific strategies, but the underlying principles that make all financial decisions clearer. How to think about money systematically. How to build wealth at any starting point. How to avoid the mistakes that derail progress at every level. If this video clarified what you should be focusing on at your current income level, or what changes as you move to the next level, that video will give you the complete foundation for making confident financial decisions for the rest of your life. Because the truth is, your income will change. Maybe it already has multiple times. Each change brings new challenges and new opportunities. The people who build lasting wealth are the ones who recognize when the game has changed and adapt their strategy accordingly. You now know what matters most at each level. You know what to focus on and what to deprioritize. You know that the advice designed for someone else's income level might not serve your specific situation. The question is, what you'll do with that knowledge. Most people will nod along, recognize themselves in one of these brackets, and change nothing. They'll keep following generic advice that may or may not fit their circumstances. They'll keep focusing on the wrong priorities for their income level. Don't be most people. Identify your bracket. Focus on the strategies that matter at your level. Build the foundation that prepares you for the next level. And when you get there, be ready to evolve your approach again. Your income level isn't just a number. It's a set of constraints and opportunities that should shape every financial decision you make. Start acting like it.